Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join his mission.
We're talking mostly about crossing the street, perhaps around the world, for the sake of these people. For the Saudis, for the Chinese, for the Indians, and then some transformative thing takes place in their life. Perhaps they meet the Lord, they see the gospel in action. What does it do to the people who take those few steps? Is there some transformative aspect in our own life that we experience just by going to meet these new cultures?
Isn't it true? Suddenly we see that we're talking with people who maybe they haven't experienced actually Jesus in all his beauty and the peace and then, you know, like my one friend Aisha, I decided I was having so much fun with my friends, I would often forget to be spiritually intentional, you know? And so I just asked her, will you study the Bible? Will you read the Bible with me? Have you ever read the Bible? Would you read the Bible with me? And she said yes. And we would read, and I would learn so much from her. So my own view also of God and of the world and of how the Bible could be read through, like, let's say an honor shame lens versus like a guilt sin lens, which is like a Western view. I learned a lot.
So you're reading the Bible with a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
She's not yet a Christian. Maybe she still is not. But you're learning from
Absolutely.
the worldview through which she's reading the Bible.
This is an example. We're reading Abraham.
Okay.
And there's...
Who's very much a part of the Islamic faith.
That's right. So
Yes.
our prophets are the same.
Yes.
And so that's why they're willing to kind of study some of the stories are the same.
Injil.
Injil, that's right. And so we're reading about Abraham, and God says Abraham, and Abraham says, here I am. And she's reading in Arabic, and I'm in English, and she goes, oh, Jeannie, that does not just mean, here I am. Hey, I'm over here. Like, come over and see me.
Right.
She goes, that means labayak. And in Arabic, it means, I say yes before you even ask the question.
Wow, really?
So goosebumps. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. And she's like, yes. Oh, yes. When God speaks and says our name, we have to say yes before we even ask the question.
That's
he
what
even
she
asked the
says to
question.
you.
That's what she says to me. And so we both determined that week, when we felt God prompting us to do something, we would say yes without even knowing the question. So we're trying to follow the ways of God, and then we go into Jesus, and we're trying to read and then do what he says, which is really what God wants us to do.
That's remarkable. I hear a couple things in that. Linguistically, how there is so much a richness that you learn simply from an understanding of different languages, right? She notices these nuances. Had you been reading from the Amplified Bible or the Message, maybe you would have picked up on it, right?
Right.
But we don't always see the deeper meaning. Yeah. And also how Muslims particularly, I would say, but other faiths as well, Hindus, and they are brushing up against the divine at all time. Mm-hmm. So the spirit world and the tangible physical world, the physical and the metaphysical are always brushing up against each other. We compartmentalize them very well, I would say, in the Western world. But they know in China, for example, I've been in many villages where they're killing pigs, killing a chicken, offering it to the hungry ghosts, lighting firecrackers so that their crops will succeed and their babies will not die and the sickness doesn't come. They're appeasing the hungry ghosts, so they call it, trying to find some sort of sacrifice to appease the gods. I say all of that because it helps us see the reality of the kingdom that is alive and at work at present. The big K kingdom, God's kingdom in our midst. Would you say you've seen that?
Yes, and I would also say, like, just to bring it down to the level of all our listeners who maybe don't have sacrificing pigs, right, in their backyard. But the idea is that sometimes we're afraid to bring up spiritual conversations. You know, Westerners, we just don't talk about, that's just like, But in Easterners, that is like talking about the weather. And so it's so much a part of their lives that's why it really is easy to say to somebody, have you ever read the Bible? Would you like to read it with me? Do you want to honor God? Let's read it and learn how to honor God together. You know, like, because the spiritual, the physical, everything's together and it's not weird.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's been my whole adult experience. The not weird. It's so normal. We recently had a team here, and they came to minister to our local missionaries who are Chinese and tribal Chinese within Reach Global. And they kept prefacing all their prayers and prophetic words that they wanted to speak by asking, is it okay if I share this? Or can I put my hand on your shoulder? And I was like, just put your hand on their shoulder and talk to them.
Just people.
Yeah, but we need to make sure we have that allowance to get past that boundaries, that space between us. Whereas, yeah, you're right. People can wrap their arms around each other and say, what is happening in your spiritual life today?
Yeah, exactly. It is so normal.
Yeah.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join his mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.